So what's going on this morning, my man? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I had the NBA draft last night, got a second tonight, so I'm kind of like in a real chill, cool mood. Sun is shining. Hey, I'm all ready for the weekend, man.
Cool.
So, but yo, man. So, tell me what you got on your mind this morning, my brother.
Well, I thought we'd do something a little bit lighter today. I mean, the news, although I love talking about politics, as you know, but,
Yeah,
it can be kind of heavy nowadays. So I
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
talk about, I know that you enjoy comic books and characters and genre just like I do. So
Right.
I thought, as a way to get to know you better, and for the audience to get to know us better, maybe is that we will go over our top five comic book characters uh, that we like. Now, let me go over some guidelines here because
I.
this these types of lists, I think, hopefully, that's something we'll do more of. So for this one,
hmm
because it's our first one. Overlap is permitted. So if one of mine is the same as one of yours, that's just the way it is because we're not doing a ranking or I mean we're not coming
We're
up
not
with
doing a
right,
top
right,
five.
right.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
just
yeah,
our
yeah.
favorites. As you know, different characters can have different iterations. So for I'll just try to find one that's probably not one that's going to be possibly be on our list. Well, I'll just use a universal one. I'll just say Superman. There's a
Okay.
Superman. Now there have been different Superman movies. There are different iterations of Superman men or men's in the
Mm-hmm.
comics.
Right.
So if you can say Superman is your favorite character, but if you want to be more specific and say the Christopher Reeve Superman is my favorite Superman, then you can send and you can do that as well. I wanted us to go from five to one, with five being, but one's the best, five is the least or the lowest on this ranking. But these are our five favorites. So with
Gotcha.
that said, why don't you start off with your number five?
All right. Well, my number five.
Or first, let me again. I hate to keep interrupting you, but again, I just think this is good for the content.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your relationship with comic books first. Tell me, how did you start? When did you start reading them? Tell me all about it.
Man, you know what? It's so funny. I began reading comic books real early. When I first started off really getting into this creative mode, it was through comics. You know how comics just grab you, man. It's a whole nother world that you escape in. Entering into kindergarten, I really started getting into a lot of comic books, and the first one that I really got into was Spider-Man. Most of my stuff leans towards Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
and the main reason I think it leans towards Marvel a lot is because of Spider-Man and the other ones that are on my group. Nerd in high school, he's got a crush on this one particular girl, and he's smart. But not only is he smart though, he's really about being there for his Aunt May. Now, when you're reading a comic book, you're really getting into a lot of deep stuff. And what's so funny about it, you're young, but a lot of the stuff that's in the comics really is for like teens
Mm-hmm.
and higher, plus teens. But Peter Parker was my man. But yeah, my love for comics, man, just comes from the fact of the creativity and looking at somebody else's vision and how they want to tell their story about things that they were able to create.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole nother world. That's why, so many of us get into Star Trek and Star Wars because it's a whole nother world and it's detailed. So you embrace that, man. So that's probably my biggest thing about comics. It was my me time. And comic books keep your attention. Books keep my attention as well. But comics at the time, that was my world, man.
It sounds very similar to me, but I got into comic books probably. I don't know. I don't want to say I was five, but it was probably seven or eight-ish or so. But I
hmm
have some older cousins who are from New York who were really into Marvel. And
Yeah.
so I got some hand me down books, so to speak, from them. And I really got into them. And I got into the writing, actually, of them more than the illustrations, although obviously you can't escape the illustrations. But I tell people that if the writing in comics was not good, people would dismiss the illustrations. That's my point.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I tell them that if the writing doesn't support the fantastical things these characters are doing, then
hmm
nobody would they would go away. I mean,
Right. Right.
because it's not just the illustrations, it's mostly the writing, and that's kind of what I fell in love with was the characters. And even though I was introduced to DC characters earlier in life, just because Superman and Batman and those characters are so much part of the popular culture, you can't. It's almost like, you as a kid, who Superman is even before you realize Superman doesn't exist. Almost like Santa Claus. So, but I did find that, and even though you'll find there's some DC characters on my list,
Hmm.
I really fell in love with comic books by reading Marvel comic books, because the writing and the characterization was a lot deeper than what you found in early DC, and that's really kind of like what I liked. So that's sort of my thing with comic books. When I used to get sick, when I would have a sick day, which wasn't very often, but my mother wanted to encourage my reading, and so there were old classic comic books. I don't know if you remember these comic books that were around in the 60s, classics comic books. So I have a comic book, like a Macbeth comic book and a Hamlet comic book and Robin Hood comic book and all this. And so she would get those for me to introduce me to what she would consider legitimate literature. But that got me, you know, I believe it was through those classic comic books that I got into really reading all the print on a comic.
Right.
And that's where I really fell in love with Marvel, because anyone who's read a Marvel comic, especially those from the 60s and 70s, knows that you might run into a page that has 250 words on a
Yeah.
lot of words on it, because it's
Right.
there's a lot of narrative and a lot of plot. So I really like those.
You brought up like those classic comics. I remember one particular comic I had. It was on Tom Landry. It was a biography on Tom Landry. It
Mm-hmm.
was a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to learn a lot about Tom Landry. I'm a Cowboys fan, so that was pretty big to me. And then there was this one particular comic that you would see within Marvel Comics in terms of advertisement, and it was the Rick Barry Dr. J. Uh,
Right.
I
Right.
saw that so many times. They even had a little short, quick one of it. I thought that was some of the coolest things. But you know what? I when I was talking about Spider-Man, I was kind of stuck because I was going to kick Spider-Man off my list because I wasn't sure if one of our characters could also be one of the villains. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
Absolutely.
okay, all right, then. Well, Spider-Man is honorable mention
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm just because I got 6 people listed. Spider-Man is honorable mention. I got him aside
Yeah.
because honestly, the person that I got at number 5 for me is Kingpin.
Okay.
That right there, just Kingpin with Spider-Man coming across him and Daredevil coming across him. I just really got into Kingpin's character. Smoking a cigar, big dude in charge. I mean, he had people feared not only with his business acumen, but also with his straight gangster mentality. And any comic book that had Kingpin in it, I was grabbing it because I was trying to keep up with the character and as things went on. And Spider Man is when I got introduced to Kingpin,
Kingpin.
and I was like, yo, I like this cat.
No, I
He's a
like
bad
Kingpin.
guy, but Kingpin is my man. They had Michael Clark Duncan playing in the first Daredevil. It was okay and
Right.
everything, but Vincent D'Onofrio,
Oh, he's got it down.
he's got it down, man. Yeah,
He's got it
and
down.
that's what makes me glad that he was able to just nail the character because he really brings him to life. I felt that when they cast D'Onofrio and the writing for it, it really mirrors what I grew up with, and I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
Kingpin was an honorable mention on my list. I like Wilson Fisk a lot, and I do
Yeah.
remember I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember the first time I was confronted with that character in the comic books. I think it was a Spider-Man comic book,
Hmm.
but I was looking at this dude who, if you don't know about him, I was like, why is everybody like all like this fat dude running things? You know what I mean? I remember he like picked up a desk and like threw it, like a big oak desk, and threw it at somebody, and I was like, oh, I see now.
Yeah, yeah. I got it.
Yeah, I
Got
got
it.
it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So no, I love Kingpin. My number 5 is a villain as well. It's a Marvel villain, It's Doctor Doom is my number
Mm,
five, and
okay.
what you're going to see is a running theme I think through my characters is that I tend to like characters who have have some mental issues, you know. But the thing I really like, and I seem to also be attracted to the story, to the origin story of the person that has been driven mad by some traumatic event. Now I know that
Mhm.
Doctor Doom, he's a rival of Reed Richards, and like a lot of these older characters, has had multiple origin stories. I mean, the
Mhm.
origin stories can change depending on who the writer is, but for the most part, Victor Von Doom is a rival of Reed Richards, who's in the Fantastic Four. For those who don't read comic books, he likes Sue Richards, who is Reed's girlfriend, then becomes his wife. But anyway, but he's very smart. But he
Yeah.
has he's in this terrible accident because he's trying to bring his mother's spirit back. That's what's really kind of
Right.
wild.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, he wants to get in touch with his mom in the spirit world. But anyway, I really like these types of characters who have some sort of traumatic event that makes them evil, or brings on some sort of power set, and they don't seem to ever go away. I mean, Doctor Doom is one of these characters, like a lot of these villainous characters in these universes, that he'll go away for a while, but all of a sudden
He's back.
he's
Yeah.
back.
And with the Fantastic Four, man, I really hate how they try to take the good stuff of Fantastic Four and just dumb it down for these movies. And what you said, going talking about who is writing, who actually captivates what people think of the character. That is important to me. That's why I look at the ones that I like. And I feel that there's certain writings in certain periods that really just really got my attention, and I'm like just holding on to those particular versions of the character.
Uh-huh.
So when I look at Fantastic Four, I have to stick strictly with the comics because
Oh
I have
yeah,
yet to see
yeah,
anybody really capture it. And I always wanted to see more from the Fantastic Four in terms of taking a step further with graphic novels. That's something else I've always wanted because I
yeah.
really get into the graphic comics because with the graphic comics, I feel that they give you more, better stories, more detail.
Uh-huh.
It really helps you to get an understanding of the character beyond what you already know. That's one of the things I love about graphic comics. And most of the characters I look at, some of them start out with Marvel in the basic universe, but when you got people that really said, okay, I'm gonna really give the story behind this person, the backstory. Those are the ones. Those are the comics. Those are the characters, and those are the additions that really stand out for me. That make me love comics. There's some that are kind of cheesy and I can't get with, but for the ones that I love, when you really go into their backstory and give details on what they've been through, that right there is that's my moment. It's kind of like my documentaries,
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
Doom is a character they have never gotten right
at all,
in the
at
movies,
all. Yeah,
and I fear they're not going. They're going to do this Robert Downey Jr. Doom thing coming up,
I think that's a horrible idea.
and I don't think while he may be good in that part, and I think that's going to be like a multiversal.
But he's Iron Man. See, I can't get with that when they do that.
I think the scuttlebutt is that they're going to. It's going to be a Tony Stark Doom, like from a
Mm,
multiverse, like Tony Stark
okay.
became Doctor Doom rather than Victor Von Doom. I think. I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know,
mm.
but
We'll
they
see.
shouldn't have done that. But anyway,
No, they shouldn't.
what's your number four?
My number four. Well, Kingpin's number five. My number four, Black Panther.
Okay.
All right, Black Panther. I remember first getting the comic. My uncle he gave me two comics. I'm gonna bring up the other one later, but he told me about the history behind it because my uncle was living up in Harlem at the time.
Mhm.
So Marvel Comics, like you said, New York, Marvel Comics is big. But he was breaking down, the character and how he represents the Black Panther Party, fighting for Black people,
Mhm.
fighting for our rights and all that. But also with Black Panther, they were in a world in Wakanda where they rule had great technology, uh, great scientists, just a place that was welcoming. It was like our utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Just the comics, seeing this black dude kicking ass, man. That was my shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
He got all the tricks and weaponry and everything. And if you look at the kind of theme of what I'm talking about with the comic book characters that I like most, they got powers, they got strength, but it's borderline.
Mm-hmm.
You really have these characters who basically are fearless. All of them are fearless, but you can kind of say, that I might be able to be a Black Panther.
Right.
Maybe you get into, I might be able to, give me the suit and all that,
Right.
inject me with the flower of the country. I might be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I get into a Black Panther. But me being black, I was just tired of seeing, Flash, Superman. I was tired of seeing that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So to get Black Panther and to know that this is something I can check out each week, that was it for me, man. So yeah, Black Panther is definitely he's definitely number 4 on my list, man.
Yeah, that's cool. I never read when I was younger. I never read individual Black Panther comic books, his own title. But I used to like when Black Panther would show up in the Avengers. And whenever I was always happy when he was like part of the team because, I really did like T'Challa a lot. But I didn't get into his book. I read a couple of, this is later on in my adult, when I was in my 30s, I read like, I think some graphic novels, but I didn't, I never got into, unfortunately, I never got into the title itself, the individual comic.
You got to jump on that bandwagon, man. You got to jump on that bandwagon.
Well, I know.
Man.
Was it Ta-Nehisi Coates
Mm-hmm.
had a run, and I was going to buy that. I think the digital comic. I was going to buy that, and I didn't. And but I will. I'll go back here and see that one.
Trust me, you enjoy it, man. It goes beyond what you see in the movies, man. It really does.
Well, my number 4, is like the polar opposite of your number 4, because my number 4 is the conservative, probably white supremacist Walter Kovacs, known as Rorschach.
All right.
Now,
okay.
I do not believe. I'm not somebody who likes necessarily Rorschach's ideology or the reasons why he does the things that he does.
But he got presence.
But I like him because, number one, unlike, just like what you were about to say, there's only one person on my list that is overpowered. That's has supernatural power. Other than that, they're either real smart or they're real determined. And one of the things I like about Rorschach is that he doesn't have any superpowers at all.
But he's determined.
Yeah. And again, like I said, and he's sick. He is a sociopath. He just happens to use his sickness against crime, against criminals. In Watchmen, when I was reading the graphic novel, and I bought it back when it was on the newsstand and it was coming in individual issues. When I read Watchmen the first time, sometimes when you read a comic with that's a team up where they're different characters, I noticed that I was enjoying the Rorschach parts of the story more than any other parts of the story. And so that's why he's on my list. It's also because one of my best lines in comics, which they had in the movie as well, is when he's in prison and he says, "You got it all wrong. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me." That's
yeah. That's the line.
Yeah. And so that's that. I was like, okay, you're my boy. So
and you talk about Watchmen. I think when they did the movie, I think they pretty much. I think they captured the essence of it, especially with the cinematography.
I thought it was good. I mean, now, they changed the ending of it. They changed the plot, the whole plot thing. But I think that Zack Snyder, I mean, spoilers for Watchmen, if you've read the the comic book or the graphic novel and saw the movie, Dr. Manhattan was the cause, the scapegoat, or the reason this thing happened in the movie.
Dr. Manhattan's a bad
In
dude,
the movie,
man.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah,
He's an also
yeah,
ran on my list as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
in Zack Snyder's version, I mean, in the comic books or in the graphic novel, it's like a giant squid that lands in the middle of
Right,
New York. It's
right.
and I thought that as a filmmaker, Zack Snyder made a good decision to not use that because I think it would have been too
Yeah, some
much.
things you can't translate
Right.
too well from comic to
Right.
to the movies. Yeah,
Right. I don't think
and
it would
that,
have been too
yeah,
much. And
yeah,
purists were upset about that change. I thought that change made sense, even though I didn't know it going into the movie. And I don't think it really changes the story too much.
right.
So I think it was, I did. I enjoyed I enjoyed Zack Snyder's version, although it's different than the comic book.
When you got guys like him that really understand what people are wanting, they look at the character, they look at what people want, they look at what has worked, and they're able to put that in play, make that vision come to light. I give him props. Yeah,
Yeah.
Snyder, I give him props on a lot of that. I guess you want to know my
Number three. What is your number three?
Luke Cage.
Okay.
These are characters that my uncle presented to me. I kind of look at this, I'm thinking, okay, he's tired of me looking at Spider-Man and Superman and all these guys. He said, look, man, this is what you need right here. He calls me main man. So, I had all those comics, man. I used
Right.
to have a comic book collection that was insane. When I say comic after comics after comic, I used to have my friend Byron. He used to come over every now and then, and he'd bring his comics. I sit down with mine, and I had all these Black Panthers. And Luke Cage is when he had a bunch of, Superman,
Mm-hmm.
he had Iron Man. So he would really get into my Black Panthers. And my man started borrowing them, and I'm like, okay, 5, 10 years, like, oh yeah, it's right there. He's
Yeah.
sitting in his bedroom. But Luke Cage, man, protecting Harlem. He got the chains on. He got his collar
Little
packed
headband.
up and everything. Yeah, it was the thing that I really wasn't with. I don't really care for Iron Fist.
Oh.
I really wasn't feeling him. I was like, all right, I really preferred him on his own. I mean, damn, you Luke Cage, you bulletproof. That's all you need. He's stripped and bulletproof in the hood. He ends up becoming the sheriff, of the underworld, which I thought was classic. Because he's basically like, hey, look, you're not going to get rid of this. Crime is going to be there.
Right.
But I'm going to police it so that their crime doesn't mess with the people of Harlem. And I just love that concept because it's reality.
Well, I was also like Marvel, they have a lot of street level heroes, or a number of them, like
Yes.
Luke Cage, like Spider-Man, although Spider-Man goes out into the cosmics and all that. But,
Daredevil.
Daredevil,
Yeah.
all of them, and that's really good,
Yeah. So who you got next, brother?
Well, my number three is The Incredible Hulk, which is, Bruce Banner, which was the first superhero comic book that I remember reading. I don't want to say, that I ever read, because it may not have been. It may have been something stupid like Richie Rich or the Archie. It's probably an Archie comic book. It was probably the first comic book I ever read. But the first superhero comic book I read was Incredible Hulk. And the thing that I liked about the Incredible Hulk was there was a horror aspect to it. The whole Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, always, when I was a kid, always used to kind of frighten me. When somebody was changing into something like werewolves and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and all that, right when they were like, it's always painful when they change.
Right.
So whenever when they go into that thing, it always was like a very disturbing thing for me. So the Hulk, what I liked about it was, I did like that thing where it was, you didn't know when it was going to happen. You never knew when he was going to bust out into the Hulk. And the second thing, the things that he was doing were so crazy, were so fantastical that I really loved. Like, he was doing stuff that, like Superman, he does all that blowing super breath and,
lasers at the eyes
and all that, that's great. But Hulk was doing stuff for like clapping his hands and making like shock waves, he was like, he couldn't fly, but he could jump like 50
Jump, yeah.
miles.
And you know what's so funny about that? Superman originally didn't fly.
Right.
He
Yeah.
just jumped,
Jump.
but
Right.
they added that later. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so it
yeah.
was that, and the fact, and the thing that I've come to really enjoy about the character, because it doesn't bother me. I don't mind an indestructible character, and the the Hulk is indestructible. You know, it's time and time again we see him just get beaten down to the ground. Whereas you know, and anyone who can beat the Hulk down is unbelievably strong, like Galactus or
Right,
something. But
right.
he always comes back. He always
It,
somehow he always survives. So I like. So I had to put it on the list because I think, besides my number one, that this is the book that I bought the most of.
but you gotta also like about the Hulk. When you look at, like you said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Mhm.
you look at the Hulk, very, very similar, and that's on purpose.
Mhm.
And is a perfect example of bipolar disorder, in my opinion. You know, but right, the Hulk is his own. The Hulk is by himself,
Right.
and just how he's unique. And I thought they got him right in the Avengers.
What I like about the Hulk in the current Marvel universe is that he can talk at times. See, what
Mm,
really used to frustrate me, I used to like, even though the Hulk in the comic book can say stupid stuff like Hulk hate puny humans and Hulk smash and all that kind of stuff. At least he can talk, though. He has something, and because, like, I think Lou Ferrigno is partially deaf, and so
right.
I think, like, in the TV show The Incredible Hulk, they always had him like growling because I don't think Lou Ferrigno could do the lines or even mouth lines very well, so they had him just that
Right,
type of thing.
right, right.
And I think that just started to be the live action mold for the Hulk for the longest time. And even Marvel held back on having him say anything. Like that movie, the Eric Bana movie, Hulk,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which I'm not a fan of,
Thank you.
except for Nick
Nah.
Nolte. Nick Nolte's killing it in
Well,
that movie.
Man, look, that's Nick Nolte, man. That's like
Yeah.
Nick Nolte in The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gonna always come correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's killing. But
yeah,
I'm not a fan of that movie. But then again, that movie you got a Hulk that's just growling. I'm
yeah,
not big into that. But the one they have now, I think I agree with you.
yeah.
I think
They nailed it.
they've gotten it right, and I like that movie with the Incredible Hulk, the one before they got the Ruffalo, with my man from Fight Club,
Oh,
um,
you talking about Ed Norton?
Ed
Yeah,
Norton. I like that
yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I enjoyed that movie. I think that's a good movie. But apparently Ed Norton's hard to work with. That's what they say.
No, I would probably have to say the Hulk is definitely in the top 10 of comic characters all time,
Yeah.
easily. Now, my next one is something that it's a bunch dealing with. There's a lot of backstory, and I'm going to emphasize exactly which one I'm talking about.
Good.
Frank Miller, Batman, Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
When I was up in New Hampshire in prep school, those, along with my number one, was my reading at night.
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Knight, Batman 6'4". I keep bringing up the movies because I want to explain people why these comic books and these characters mean a lot to me, and I feel like some people destroyed them. This is Batman the Dark Knight. Bringing in Tim Burton with Michael Keaton to do the first Batman movie was awful. They were looking more at combining the Dark Knight with the old school 60s version of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love the way Christian Bale did it, because you got Ra's al Ghul.
Right.
They took what I looked at and they actually did it right. Michael Keaton's 5'8", Christian Bale 6'2", Batman was 6'4". I want what the comic gives me.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you look at Wolverine, I'm all for Hugh Jackman and all that, but Wolverine was like 5'8", 5'9". I always saw somebody like Jack Nicholson getting in shape playing Wolverine.
Right.
But going back to it, the writing, the history, the backstory, just the complexity of the Dark Knight. I mean, he was cool.
Mm-hmm.
He's cool in the comics, and you're like, okay, I can get with him. And once again, doesn't have any superpowers,
Right.
but he's determined, smart, and he's got a ton of resources. Like you said in the movie, hey, what's the superpower? I'm rich.
Right. Well, my number two is related to yours. It's Joker is my number two.
All right. Okay.
And the reason I liked, and I'll be specific on Joker, the Joker that I really like, and I do like some renditions of the Joker that have been in movies and on TV. I mean, I'm nostalgic about the Batman TV series in the '60s. You know, I like the Cesar Romero Joker. Cesar Romero got that part down. You know, they just didn't have him doing any of the violence, but but the way he acts like the Joker that I like acts. He just doesn't care and he laughs. Now, the Joker that I like, the Joker from comic books. There is a comic book that is like my favorite comic book, but besides the Frank Miller Year One and the Dark Knight Rises, which I do like.
Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. Yeah. And I like Heath Ledger's Joker. My Joker's scarred though. I mean, I know that, you know, I don't mind the Joker with the makeup, but my Joker, I'm the chemical scarred Joker. I like that guy. There's a comic book called Joker's 5-Way Revenge, which I still have. I still have about 50 of my old comic books. This is one that I still have. It's from 1973. Okay. You may have seen it before because it's a famous, you see it in posters sometimes. There's a famous picture of Joker holding this great big ace of spades with Batman like held onto it. That's the cover of it. That's the cover of that 5-Way. And he gets out of jail, the Joker, he busts out of Arkham, and he wants to kill the 5 people that were responsible for putting him in. Even as a kid, this is where I fell in love with the Joker. I hate to say, there's a scene in this comic book where there is a judge, the judge that sentenced Joker, that Joker has, and the judge is in a wheelchair. Okay, he's old. He's in a wheelchair. The Joker has him on a plank in the aquarium. He's in the Gotham Aquarium over the shark tank, right? And Batman busts in. And Joker's like looking at Batman. And he's like, you know, he tells Batman, you know, he always wants to tell Batman how he's crazy and he's just obviously stupid for doing what he's doing. And then he says, but here's really the dumb part. You could easily come and get me right now, but you won't. You know why? Because I'm going to put this guy in the shark tank and you're going to have to save him. And, you know, and he's laughing the whole time. And he's like, your stupid ass is going to have to save him.
Yeah, because you're Batman.
Because you're Batman. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Now, but, you know, anyway, I when I saw that, I was like, dang, that's cold-blooded. That's diabolical. And so I really
that's reality.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I really like this character. Now they have taken the Joker, as all characters, all writers, you know, there's some versions of the Joker I don't like. I did like the Jack Nicholson Joker.
Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson, and the way he played that, you was really into him.
Right. I like the Jack Nicholson Joker. Yeah. I didn't care for the Tim Burton rendition of it. I think what I always will say, and I'll keep saying to this day, that is even though I like the Jack Nicholson Joker, where Tim Burton and the casting went wrong is they should have made now I can't think of his name. The guy who played Batman. They should have.
Oh, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. They should have made Michael Keaton Joker and found another Batman. Michael Keaton would have been a perfect Joker. But they,
you know what? Especially at the Beetlejuice. Yeah.
I think that's why. I think that might be why they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Even though Nicholson was, he was hot as really hot. I mean, a lot of people went to see that movie just because Nicholson was in it. Yeah. So. I'm sure that played a part in it.
And it had a kick-ass soundtrack.
Yeah.
Prince killed that, man. Yeah.
But anyway, my number 2 is Joker, and it's the Joker from the comic books, specifically Joker's 5-Way Revenge. Mm-hmm. So who is your number 1?
My number 1, man, Frank Castle, the Punisher.
I should have known from our conversation previously.
Look, I'm just, look, like I said, look, man, I fell in love with the Punisher, and I'm finally glad they got him right. I remember getting those first comics of the Punisher, and the one scene that really got my attention, when he's in prison, and he gets locked in that block with all those prisoners who had some type of beef with him, and he kills them all. Mm-hmm. This dude feels no pain. Mm-hmm. He'll get shot. He keeps coming at you. He's like the fucking honey badger, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he don't give a I mean, he's just coming at you. And he has this determination that if you don't, I'm going to you. And he doesn't hesitate at all. And they finally got him right.
So Barenthal.
He is the Punisher.
Yeah.
Attitude. And what I love so much about the comic is that you feel all the shit that he's going through when you're reading it. You're like, damn, I would be mad too. He's angry and he has a right to be angry. But the brother does need to try to work on,
he got some issues. He got some
he's got some issues. He need to sit down with a therapist and have a couple of Prozac, some Xanax on the side and chill. But nah, Frank Castle, the Punisher, that's my number one.
Yeah, I think Barenthal, the thing about Barenthal, which he brings to all his parts, which is really good with the Punisher. Some of the other ones that I've seen in the movies or portrayals of the Punisher, some of the old renditions of the other ones, Punishers other than Barenthal, the ones before, the guy's kind of stoic. The thing that Barenthal, I think, understands is that this guy is somebody who is in a lot of pain and is, disturbed.
Beyond
emotionally disturbed, and that's why he's doing what he's doing, not because he's just a mad killer.
Right.
So okay, well, my number one is your number two, which was Batman and Bruce Wayne. Now I do, like yourself, I do lean toward the Batman of the Dark Knight Returns, and in that vein. I mean, there are a lot of different Batman. I think it's easier for me to tell you the Batman I don't like than the ones that I do like. I mean, I didn't mind Michael Keaton as Batman. I don't think he was the best Batman. I didn't like those Batman movies, so I'll just say the Tim Burton.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People try to say he was the best one. No, he wasn't.
And I don't like the the Val Kilmer Batman or the George Clooney Batman, those Christian Bale, I think, did a good job, and I liked the Batman, the one with Rob Pattinson. I enjoyed that one. I don't think he's big enough.
No,
I don't think he's big enough. So the thing I like about the Dark Knight Returns and the Frank Miller Batman is, one, the guy's big, and then also what Frank Miller added, which I really appreciated, is because he has no superpowers. So he has his Batman taking painkillers.
That's what I like. You feel the pain. You feel it.
He's got, in his utility belt, he's got pills. You know what I mean? He's got first aid and all that stuff. And that's what I really liked about it, because it'd be hard to be Batman. To do what he does. And it was gonna take your toll on your body. So I really did. I did like that. So yeah, and Batman, like I was saying before, like I said, Hulk was the second most books that I bought. Batman, I'm sure I bought more Batman titles than any other title. And it was, one, because of Batman, but also because, much like Spider-Man, Batman and Spider-Man probably have the best villains.
They got the best following.
The best villains. No, I'm not saying
all best villains. Yeah.
They're probably the best villains. And I just really, have an appreciation for that Batman's rogues gallery, as they say. All I like pretty much. There are some villains I don't like, but I pretty much will like all of them, whether it's Poison Ivy or if it's the Penguin or if it's Riddler.
One I wish they would focus on more is the Riddler. They get the Joker, but I really would like to see the Riddler. And I think if they would have had Jim Carrey playing the Riddler against Christian Bale's character of Batman, I think it could have came off. I think it was just too silly when he was with Tommy Lee Jones. And
well, I'll tell you what.
I felt like they just missed an opportunity right there.
I think I remember we had a conversation. I'm pretty sure you watched it. Did you watch Gotham, the show Gotham?
Yeah, I watched Gotham.
That guy who played, I liked that Riddler.
Okay. I'm with you. Yeah,
I liked that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, Gotham was dark. I think that's what kept my attention with Gotham.
Yeah, it was dark. Like it went off the rails a few times. It
did, and near the end it started going off the rails. But initially, it was like, okay, this is why Batman was needed.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good show. I mean, I would recommend it to people if they like that type of genre of television. I mean, I thought it was really well done. But I would give them the warning that somewhere with, in like the third or fourth season, it'll go. And they got it back on. You know what I mean? I watched it religiously when it was on. Right. There were a couple of times when I was like, what am I doing? What am I watching? This is like crazy. But then about 3 or 4 episodes later would somehow get back on the track, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But they went off sometimes.
Anyway, everybody, we're out of here. And look, y'all keep watching, keep rocking and rolling, and Howard and I talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.